Right.
Ready to rock.
I just studied how I study for my exams.
You know that's going in the show. 100%.
I didn't realize you were recording right now.
Absolutely. Always. All right. Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, our favorite pizza joint in Wisconsin, located at 911 North Hastings Way, frozen pizza and pizza buffet. We are starting off the show with the only news we have about Wisconsin, them hiring a new offensive coordinator. No longer do we have the air raid attack. Thank God that that's gone.
And his name looks like he is Jeff Grimes from Kansas. And I did a little research on him, and it looks like he's been around for a while. He played tackle at University of Texas, El Paso. And he's kind of been jumping around here and there, and looks like he's been chasing the money, and now we landed up at Wisconsin. So I don't know much about the guy.
No, and there's not a whole lot out there. The one thing that popped with me was he led BYU, the number 3 scoring offense at BYU in 2020. So he definitely knows how to put up points. He's done it in his past. We hope he does it at Wisconsin. I mean, basically what everybody's saying is he's going to be asked to restore that identity of that offense. And, you know, like me and you both know, we need to start with the run. Run's going to open up the pass, but you got to have a different mentality at Wisconsin with the running backs that we get in and with the offensive playmakers we have. What we tried this last year did not work. What we've tried in the last couple of years hasn't really worked.
No, I think it comes back to, and we've said it, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, until we can build a wall back around the state of Wisconsin and keep our boys at home and want to go to Wisconsin, I just don't know. Like I said, we have the talent and the potential in the state, but we keep on shipping our guys to other places, and that can be a correlation of, the NIL. I mean, there's a lot of factors that are playing into it that we don't have our high school players playing or staying home.
Absolutely. Well, one thing, I mean, the one positive with him is he's done well in the past, but so did Fickle, like we talked about last episode. So he's got to be able to coach those players, but you got to be able to recruit those players and keep the players. And that's where NIL and money comes into play.
Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And apparently nobody is going to offer Wisconsin a bowl that we've heard so far. And I know that was the hope.
Yeah, the bowls are out. There's no bowl for Wisconsin.
It's not happening.
We just got to cheer on the Big Ten, and we're going to get to the playoff brackets in the second half of the show, right after we talk Packers. And yeah, it's a disaster. They made a bunch of mistakes. We'll explain why. Mm-hmm. But right now with the Packers basically played the best team in the NFL in the Detroit Lions. And they hung, for the most part, which was good to see from the Packers. There were definitely positive things. Love didn't turn the ball over for, I think, the 3rd game in a row. Right. So definitely positives. But what I did not like seeing was all over social media, just Packer fans complaining. Right. Complaining about calls, complaining about helmets coming off, just complaining about all that shit. And it's bottom line, you got to go out, you got to win. On Sunday or Thursday or whatever day of the week you're playing, you got to come out and win. And the Packers did not. They didn't do enough to win the game. It started with what I laughed at, LaFleur getting in a verbal altercation with a Lions fan that's out there to hold the American flag before the game. Now, granted, that guy's running his mouth. Right. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that for the fan. But how does a head coach of an NFL football team that's been there get into it with a fan prior to the game? And he goes, oh, he was talking trash to our players and doing the slit your throat move. I'm like, what are you, a baby?
Is this junior high? We're on the
exactly. I was just going to say, are we in 6th grade here and a mom is complaining from the stands?
That or
like slit your throat? Like that used to be allowed in the NFL. Now the NFL does say that that's a penalty if you celebrate like that, which is comical. But that's what got you so fired up before the game. So where's his head in come game time? That was the first thing. Oh. The St. Brown block on Packer safety where the helmet comes off.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me.
Yep.
what in your playing career, whether it was junior high, high school, college, or professional, how many times have you lost your helmet?
Never.
Okay.
Practice and games. Never.
And I think I've lost mine once, and it was once or twice, and it was an illegal hands to the face.
Yep.
And my head had to go back further because
Yeah.
otherwise my head was going to come off in my helmet.
Yeah. We're complaining because one of the best receivers in the league
Yep.
went out and blocked on a play. Freaking 1, buckle your chin strap on.
Yeah.
2, defend yourself and be a football player.
Yep.
Like, you just have a hat on, loose, chin strap loose, and they got the sliding, locking chin straps. Tighten that shit up.
Yeah.
Like, you seem like a pussy out there when you're getting your hat knocked off.
Or maybe your helmet is just a little bit too big. Maybe you need to get a reset.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but
Back
you
in
can't
the-
complain.
back in the day, Billy.
And fans, if you want to complain about the player on your team.
Yep. And back in the day, if that happened, you just put a little air in there. Remember
Yeah. And you put your thumb on the hole and squeeze it. Absolutely. I still got the helmet over there with the ear hole in it. But yeah, so those were some of the things that drove me nuts about the game. But bottom line, like we keep saying, the Super Bowl is coming through Detroit. If you don't know that by now, and we're trying to find takeaways to feel good about the Packers, being the home state team. And there are some, like we said, they hung in the game. There's a stat they held our rush defense held them to 94 yards on 29 carries.
Mhm.
So that's coming off of last week where they slowed down, or last game where they slowed down McCaffrey and Devon Achane. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that name, but they're getting there. You know what I mean? Like, we're starting to have some consistency with the Packers, but you got to finish. You're playing a team like Detroit. I mean, it wasn't like it was a fake play or anything. He's going for it on 4th down to earn and get the victory right there. You have a chance to stop. You got to make a play. That's one play. You got to make that play.
Yep.
Like, there's no way of saying ands or buts about it. You could say, and I laugh too, like, there's just so many, like, unintelligent people on social media. You get the fans that, and I mean, it's not a dumb play, but it is a very rare play to go for it in that 4th down situation.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get the fans that say, well, the analytics say to go for it. And I go, analytics are the most conservative thing when it comes to numbers out there. They absolutely do not say, out of 1,000,000 4th downs, that's the one you don't go for it.
Right.
You kick the field goal, you get the most guaranteed scenario of points. You get the points. But fans are trying to say analytics and this and that. And I'm like, bottom line, Packers defense needs to come up with a stop there. And then you have Jordan Love, who's playing a phenomenal second half at that point. You got a chance to go down the field, kick a field goal, win the game if you don't score a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to get that stop on 4th down.
And the one thing I think that the Packers did very well is the first half. It looks like Jordan Love was pressured in 6 of his 10 dropbacks in the first half. They were able to go inside at halftime, do some coaching up and do different strategy, and he seemed a lot more settled down in the second half of that game.
Well, another thing with that first half is Zadarius Smith was a Packer defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Now he's with the Lions. Like, people don't get, yes, it's a business, but when you piss somebody off, they want to show you that they should not have been fired. And going back to Brett Favre, even Brett Favre followed my whole plan. Like, my plan when I got cut from Green Bay was I wanted to play for Detroit, Chicago, or Minnesota to go back and show the Packers that they made a mistake. Zadarius Smith proved it.
Right.
He is lighting shit up with the Lions right now, and he was part of that issue with Jordan Love and the offensive line in that first half of that game.
And again, not hopping on the Detroit bandwagon fan, but I tell you what, I love to watch them.
Yeah, it's not even a bandwagon. They're just legit.
It is.
Talk about our offense from the Packers' point of view, pass offense, rush offense. Yes, we did good. But we got to remember, too, as Packer fans, we're going up against a third-string defense with Detroit.
Right.
What starters are on that Detroit team? They're all third-string players out there. That's like the scout team for the Lions that's playing defense. They're just stepping up. We say it week after week after week. Maybe the next team that plays Lions needs to listen to 217 South Mills podcast and be like, the next guy up, they're going to fill the shoes.
Yep.
Next man up, they're going to do it.
I agree.
They do it week in, week out.
Yep.
So I don't know. That's basically it with the Packers. They hung. I think they're definitely not winning. I think it's all I think mathematically it's probably just about out for division or anything like that. They've lost to everybody in the division, but they'll probably make a wild card game, make the playoffs. Hopefully it's not like the Aaron Rodgers playoffs with Green Bay where it's one and done. Hopefully they can make a run, but bottom line, like I said, I would not want to be a team playing the Detroit Lions.
I agree.
I mean, they're just they're a different breed this year.
And that's awesome. And I am rooting for them just because I love the underdog and I love what their head coach has done and changed the personality of that team from the Lions back. The only time I remember them even being remotely good was Barry Sanders, and he was a one-man show.
Yes. Didn't have a line, didn't have a quarterback.
No.
Not even what he's done with the Lions this year, but what he's done with the players that he's had. Like, I mean, you could argue, well, he has Aaron Hutchinson. Well, Hutchinson's injured. Yeah. Everybody else is injured. It's like there's just very few players. There are a couple stars on that team. Obviously, Goff is lighting it up. Right. St. Brown, wide receiver. Their running backs are running good. But like we said, defense, third string defense on the field. He is doing as best as any coach could do with a team that's had that many injuries and that many severe injuries.
And I agree. And he's revitalized the city and give him a sense of pride. And
yes.
Again, Midwest, Michigan, blue collar, they thrive on that. They thrive on that coach at his post conference or post game conferences, in the way he talks and the swagger he brings in there. I don't care where we play. I don't care. Grass, turf, a junkyard, a parking lot. He doesn't give a shit.
And he doesn't slow down.
No.
He's always got the foot on the gas pedal and just always going 100 miles an hour.
Love it. Hey, Bill, when you think of Christmas, what do you think of?
You in a Santa suit trying to squeeze your big ass down my chimney?
That is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard.
I don't know. Christmas trees, presents, snowmen, candy canes?
Candy canes. The drink of the month in December is the candy cane mocha. It's a double shot of espresso, white chocolate, peppermint syrup, milk, whipped cream, and crushed candy canes.
Sounds good. Not as good as you in a Santa suit trying to squeeze down my chimney.
Come on down to Cabin Coffee Altoona and get yourself a candy cane mocha. What is wrong with you?
All right, now we are going to be all over the board. We wanted to try our best to address some of the stuff with the college football playoffs. And it is a shit show, to say the least. A lot of fans have already seen it with the bracket and the seeding and the way everything's come down. Obviously, we know it's a 12-team format. I think the one issue that we've all seen so far is conference champions should not be an automatic playoff berth, nor should they be a first-round bye. And I think the top four conferences are a first-round bye.
Actually, that's top five, Bill, isn't it?
I think no, because the second round is only four. So who gets a bye? Georgia gets a bye, Boise State gets a bye, Oregon gets a bye, and Arizona State gets a bye. Right. I'm trying to think who the person left out of the bye is, but that's who would it be? I don't know. Whoever. It might be Clemson that did not get a bye. But somebody in the first round didn't get a bye that won a championship. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, there's just so many things about this. I'm going to jump right to, because I did a short video the other day about, I am glad Alabama's not in it.
Right.
I think what fans are seeing is once everybody else is allowed to pay players, Alabama's not the Alabama that we knew.
Right.
When Alabama's one of the few teams that's allowed to pay players, right, yeah, they're going to be in the national championship every single year. Mm-hmm. I could field the team if I'm the only one that could pay players, right, and be in the national championship every single year. Right. So I think we're going to go back to the old shitty Alabama before you know it. I think they're going to start cycling through coaches, and I feel bad for Bama fans, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Now, the teams that are in the playoffs that I cannot believe are Boise State and SMU.
Yep, Southern Methodist University.
Boise State, I knew they were Division I. SMU, I thought they were 1AA.
Right.
So here's what I attacked. I know I got my notes all over the place here, but one of the main things that the playoff looks at is strength of schedule. Mm-hmm. Boise State, out of the teams in the playoff top 25, there's only 3 teams worse than Boise State for strength of schedule. Mm-hmm. UNLV, Army, and Memphis.
Yep.
Now, Memphis was 11-1, but Memphis only has, I think, 5 teams that had an easier schedule than them. So I can't even believe how they made the top 25. But Boise State is 78th strength of schedule out of all the Division I schools. Now, all the Boise State fans are going to argue, well, we played Oregon, and that's our only loss, and we hung in the game with them. Mm-hmm. They did. They lost 37-34.
Right.
Another rule that the playoff committee has is they do not look at the score of the game. It's either a win or a loss. So if you win by 1 point or 100 points, or you lose by 1 point or 100 points,
right,
it's either a win or a loss. So it doesn't matter that it was a close game. You lost. It's an L.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 on the list for why Boise State shouldn't be in the playoffs, they played Portland State. It took me a minute to figure out who the hell Portland State is. I thought they're down the road from Little Sisters of the Poor, and they essentially are. They're Division I AA. Yep. Not even in the strength of schedule, because that's only talking about Division I schools. So they play Portland State, a 1AA team. Joe, that was our era in the 2000s when all the top teams played 1 or 2 Division I AA
right.
schools, so you could boost your scoring, your wins,
knock
all
the
that
rust
stuff
off a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. And then get into your conference play. In 2024, you're not allowed to do that,
right,
because the system looks at strength of schedule. It looks at who you're playing. So now I looked at the strength of schedule. Forget about the strength of schedule. The toughest schedule team that they played was Oregon State, who was 69th on the strength of schedule. But everybody else now, they're in the Mountain West Conference, which another thing with Boise State, up until probably 6-8 years ago, I thought Mountain West was Division I AA as well. Never really heard of them, didn't know who was in their conference. But here are the teams they play. Georgia Southern, we already said Portland State, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, Oregon State, and UNLV. A bunch of who are they has-beens,
mm-hmm.
never was.
Right.
That puts this team into the playoff contention and gives them a bye.
I agree.
So here, okay, I'm going to hit really quick on SMU. SMU is very similar. The only difference with SMU is they're about 15 points higher on the strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule is number 64, but they also play a Division I AA, Houston Christian, which is just east of Little Sisters of the Poor. And now, granted, they did play Florida State and Stanford, which Florida State had 12th toughest, Stanford had 19th toughest, and they beat both those teams. So SMU's got a little bit more going than Boise State. Yeah. But here's where Boise State screws things up, and the playoff committee screws it up. So Boise State gets a bye. The way the brackets break down in the seeding, Penn State's playing SMU the first round of the playoffs. Penn State's going to win that game.
Yep.
Now Penn State plays number 3, Boise State. Boise State's going to be a 14-point, if not more, underdog after having a bye playing Penn State. Penn State's going to win that game and automatically get to the semifinals because Penn State gets to play the 2 shittiest teams in the college football playoff round. Prove me wrong, Internet. Prove me wrong, fans, commenters, whatever. But please wait till after the game. Wait till after SMU beats Penn State or Boise State beats Penn State because it's not going to happen.
I agree. And, I think the only person who's going to call you beforehand is going to be one of the players' moms calling you and saying that, what you're saying is hurtful and not right, Bill.
They'll probably threaten that I did the slit your throat motion. But here's even another thing. Not saying that I believe this team deserves to be in either, but if you're putting Boise State in, Army.
Mm-hmm.
Army's only loss is to Notre Dame.
Yep.
It won a conference title. It's 11-1, and they will not be playing in the playoffs.
Right.
Notre Dame's only loss is to Northern Illinois. Notre Dame's 11-1, did not win a conference title, and Notre Dame will be playing in the playoffs.
Right.
How do you do that math? Now, I don't think Army deserves to be in, but it's just when you – and I was appreciative that the committee only had a small amount of rules when it came to picking these teams, but you got to abide by them. We had talked off camera about the computer system back in the day. I almost think we need to go to computers because here's another thing that I made note of is you look up the selection committee. which there always has to be a selection committee. I mean, ever since, I think going back to the BCS, there was a selection committee because somebody's got to pick who's going to these games. But this committee is made up of athletic directors, coaches, former coaches, and former players. You can't tell me that there's bias in there.
Of course there is.
So, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
but how are you going to find a committee to do this?
Okay, so what my thought is, why not just go? Why do we even have a college football? So I always looked at it like, think about the regular top 25. You have the AP, which is just reporters, the Associated Press. Then you have the coaches, top 25, which I always said you go with the coaches because they're the ones playing the teams, not the reporters. A thing the fans might not know is most of the coaches don't do the picking. I know at Wisconsin, at least our last year, our GAs did the picking for the top 25.
Oh, for sure.
Alvarez didn't do the top 25. Like, it was just, what head coach wants to do that? So then I started losing value in the coaches. Like, if somebody's ranked 2 spots higher than the coaches, it's like, well, it's just the GA or Joe Blow. Like, it's the line coach doing the top 25. So maybe it is the AP, and you just say, you know what? The reporters are doing it. They're most of them are, majority of them are people that never were athletes, never could be athletes. So they're the most unbiased in the world. Let them pick it. So the AP, top 25, the top 12 teams go to the playoffs.
Well, now we have this thing called AI. Is it something where you have AI do it? And I know it's back to computer, but I mean, AI is the newest rave out there. Is it something where they're able to, if you're able to input all this information into about each team, yards per carry, win, loss, record, blah, 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 and have it shit out
you would think that's what the computer was supposed to be doing back in the day, but yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with that too. But like, looking at this list, like we said, we got a former Nevada head coach, we got the current Navy athletic director, former head coach, former NFL player, former head coach, Baylor's current athletic director, former head coach, Miami of Ohio's current athletic director, former NFL player. We have one reporter on the list, the current AD at Virginia, and the current AD at Arkansas. That's our committee right now. There's just too many people that have way too much bias that just should not be a part. Now, granted, they're basing it off of computers. They're basing it off of the top 25. They're basing it off of the college or the coaches' top 25. They're taking all that into factor, I guarantee, and what the computer spits out. But I just don't feel like anybody that has any potential bias should have even an arm's reach to the college football playoffs.
I agree.
Just should be set.
But I just don't know how it's going to be fair. I mean, and I understand you can say that unless you get a whole bunch of math majors together or actuary science guys. Or
and maybe
like
we
that,
do. Like, I mean, we've already said, I mean, we're probably approaching, I'm not going to go that far. I was going to say the word with the T, the trillion. We're in the multiple hundreds of billions of dollars with college athletics. Why are we so outdated with figuring the system out? It should be simple. Like, I mean, we were in the Stone Age back when people picked 1 versus 2 and you're playing, or they didn't even play, I'm sorry, back before we got into school, they didn't even play 1 versus 2. Just reporters said ABC is the national championship because that's who we voted. They didn't even play anybody for the national championship back in the day. They were just voted, you're the national champion. But today, with all the technology, with all the computers, the stats, the this, the that, like, how we don't have a better breakdown of this, it absolutely blows my mind.
I agree with you. Something needs to be done here. And then when it goes back to, there's a lot of things wrong with the NCAA when you're looking at the NIL and how much money is being exchanged and teams that are that they don't have the money to compete anymore. So if you look right now at the playoff level, I guarantee you, although I'm not sure about SMU and Boise State, what their NIL money is. I have no, or their collective money. I have no idea, but maybe they have a golden ticket somewhere over there where someone's dumping a crap ton of money into them.
And maybe not, just because they play in a shitty conference.
Yeah, true.
And I mean, we've said this for many years. If this is the system we're going with, what stops not a great team, just a good, what stops a middle of the road Big Ten team from leaving the Big Ten and going to one of these shitty going to the ACC or the Mountain West Conference and just going undefeated? So, can you imagine if, like, say, Northwestern left the Big Ten, went to the ACC or the Mountain West, goes undefeated,
Huh?
they're going to be seeded number 1 in the playoffs.
Perhaps. Yeah. And
I mean, that
obviously,
that's like mind blowing.
obviously, there appears to be an issue in the selection.
And like, here's even the other thing too. Boise State is seeded number 3 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If they just got lucky and didn't play Oregon this year and played another freaking Georgia Southern or some other the team to the south of Little Sisters of the Poor, they would have been seeded number 1.
Yep.
How do you not seed them number 1? The way this system is, that you're just gifting this shitty conference and shitty team. And I'm sorry if you go to that conference, but we're talking college football playoffs.
Right.
We're talking the best of the best. I'm sorry, those conferences aren't included. None of those. I got to read it one more time because I'm mind blowing here. Georgia Southern, Washington State, Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Oregon State. None of those teams ever right now are considered even in the top 40 in the country.
Agreed.
You know, like they do not deserve to be in the playoffs. Like, how do you play? A shitty team can't play other shitty teams, win a bunch of games, and automatically you're deserving of the best.
I agree.
Like the bottom half of the Big Ten would beat damn near all these teams. Like, and that was my argument too. It's like, if Boise State, because I remember whenever Boise State came on the national picture, I think it was like 2010 or something, maybe even a couple years before that. If you're that good, why not go join a good conference?
Right.
And the reason is because you won't go 500 in a good conference. Right. Like, this year's Boise State team that has 1 loss would barely make a bowl game in the Big Ten.
I agree.
Now, I know the Big Ten is the best conference in America right now, but you would barely make a bowl game. That's barely getting 6 wins. You might get 6. And this year's Boise State team might get 6 wins in the Big Ten. But, fuck.
Yeah.
You're not going the way you're going right now. Like, it literally gives me a headache thinking about this.
Are you eventually going to just bring it down and hope to get all the conferences within the top, Power 5 conference, or smaller than that?
See, I don't think you can. I don't think you can do that with all the teams, because you're still staying with a college, whatever it is, an 11-game season or whatever.
The West and the Big Ten. Are you going to break up? Are you going to break up the?
Well, I don't care how you. And here's my thing. I don't care who you play.
Right.
I'm just saying, if we're saying strength of schedule is a factor in who we pick, I think it needs to abide to the shitty teams that play in shitty conferences.
I agree.
You know, where right now in this scenario, it doesn't.
Right.
Like, Boise State is not the 3rd best team in the country.
And I agree. And
they're seeded as the 3rd best team in the country. And, okay, let's just look at who's in the playoffs. Clemson's better than Boise State. Texas is better. Tennessee's better. Ohio State's better. I'd go as far to say SMU's better. Indiana's better. Notre Dame's definitely better. Georgia's definitely better. Oregon's definitely better. And Arizona State probably is better. But Boise State's seeded 3rd.
I know.
Like, somebody show me the math on how Boise State is supposed to be the 3rd best team in the country when they have the 78th easiest schedule in the whole country.
And just to put that in comparison for you folks, Wisconsin had the 29th most difficult schedule out of all of them. So you have Michigan, Mississippi State, UCLA, Kentucky, Purdue. Alabama was number 9. Georgia was 10. Texas is 15. 21 was South Carolina, and 23 is Ohio State. And then, so I agree with you. Like, but I don't know what the solution is.
If Boise State wants to, they can't stay in that conference and have an argument that they're that good. And bottom line, it's going to show come playoff time. This is what I was begging for when Boise made a BCS game, whatever year that was, back in the BCS era, and they won. And I go, well, that's one game. Me and you both know anybody can win one game on any given day. But to win this, now granted they get a bye, but they got to win 3 games to win a national championship. No way. Anybody out there from Idaho or anywhere else, I will lay down $1 million against your $1 million that Boise State will not win a national championship.
I am not included in this bet that Bill has made.
I'll even give up my percentage in cabin coffee on top of the $1 million.
okay.
But it's just not
which is zero, but great.
Well, are you saying that for the show?
No.
All right. If maybe he doesn't want to air it. All right. It's tiny percentage, but there's a percentage. But what I'm just saying is, you can't have these teams in. It has to end. It has to be fixed. And I can't wait for that the quarterfinals. And it's probably going to be Penn State that kicks their ass. And what is Boise State going to say? I mean, and Penn State's the 6th seed.
Yep.
That's going to be favored at least by 2 touchdowns. Again, how do you not favor Penn State by 14 points or more against Boise State?
Well, if I'm playing for Penn State, I'm super excited right now.
Oh, absolutely.
I am.
You just have to show up and just do your job, and you're in the semifinals.
I am looking.
You're one game away from the national championship,
which is
if you're Penn State.
Oh.
And then if you're think about Ohio State, they got to beat Tennessee. Then they got to play Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Then if they beat Oregon, then they go to the semifinal. Like, I mean, I don't know. But looking at bowl games to wrap it up, we said Wisconsin is not in the mix. Oh, and I did the math. I'm not going to. Well, here, I'll do it quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Bill did math. Watch out, folks.
7.
Bill's doing math.
So this says 49. I thought I had 52 for total bowl games, including playoffs. This says 49.
Mm-hmm.
But, one, that's crazy. Everybody, we played in the .com era. Now you got, every bowl under the sun, the New Mexico Bowl. But I don't know. The couple that I thought were noteworthy was that is not. Nope. I circled one that is not noteworthy that I thought was early. BYU Colorado, just because I think it's going to be Deion's last game at Colorado, if not Deion's last game in college.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of talk about him going to the NFL.
Right.
And then on New Year's Eve at noon, Alabama and Michigan are playing. And I don't know.
If you're a fan of football, it's still a pretty exciting time right now for the playoffs. And again, I find myself watching people that I have no skin in the game, but I just enjoy the actual competition.
Bowls are awesome. I mean,
sport,
it doesn't it sucks as a player if you're going to a shitty bowl, but as a fan, I mean, to think from December 14th to January, not every single day, but from December 14th to January 20th, there's bowl games, 49 bowl games to be exact. Now, once you get in, like the end of December, beginning of January, there's a lot of bowl games that pile up on days like the December 27th, I think has like 5 or 6 bowl games, and I'm sure January 1st has a ton. But this is fun season. I mean, you get to watch fun games. You get to watch teams that typically don't play each other, and they're all neutral site games other than, I believe, the first round of the playoffs are certain teams have home field advantage. But, it's an exciting time of year, exciting to be a football fan.
Agreed.
But I don't know. Maybe they need to have us on the committee. Maybe we are the committee.
I'm just former players.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe, here's the thing, too. Maybe you do former players that have never coached, but if their team has any possibility of being involved, their vote doesn't count.
True.
So, if we were on a committee and Wisconsin was in the top, say, 15 in the country, if we vote Wisconsin, that doesn't count. That's
you have to bring
the vote to wash. Right. Yeah, the other people count. Do something like that. But there's too much bias involved right now. And like I said, either computers or reporters, and I hate reporters. So I don't know.
Why, Bill? What? Why do you hate reporters?
Well, sports reporters, they never played, so
yeah, true.
It's sort of like announcers with ESPN. The woke network, they definitely figured it out. It's all former athletes. I think the NFL's figured it out where it's all former athletes. If you're not a former athlete, there's that coaching pool is getting reduced drastically and fast.
True.
So, that's my take.
All right.
I think that about sums it up. Tune in next week for another episode of 217 South Mills.
We're going to thank our sponsors. First one's Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey at 911 North Hastings Way. Favorite pizza in the state of Wisconsin.
Have a good one.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.